Yeah.
You are a son of a bitch.
Un saluto a tutti.
All right, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is another post-match podcast. Lazio getting the job done against Juventus. A soft Juventus, in my opinion, and we're gonna talk about it. We got a packed house today. Lucci, we got Lou, and we have L'Arbitro Nick, okay? Referee Nick join us for the first time. Nick Cardone, our friend. And yes, everybody, I wasn't just making him up, okay? All right, so here we go. Before we get into all the good stuff, obviously, we'll say what's up to everybody in the live chat. And yes, Buona Pasqua to everybody, okay? So happy Easter. Thank you for all the well wishes from everybody, even this guy, Mr. Scanga here.
The worst.
So he's expecting a beauty today, especially how our chat was and whatnot. So we'll see where everybody fits in here. But yes, Buona Pasqua a tutti, okay? Lot to cover in this game. 2-1 defeat at the hands of Lazio. We were talking about score lines going into this one, and Juve had a good chance again to take advantage after some shortcomings on those other ones. And yes, we have Sweet Lou with us today, having to deal with the kit that he has to get Jeremiah after Rabiot has accomplished the double-digit goals on a season. So, Lou, that didn't even sink in for you, did it?
Nah, because what happened was Sandro flopped in the box, and I was still, kind of reeling about that. And then the chat went off, and I realized that we had scored. But I was still raging about that. So I didn't even have time to make a number 25 joke.
Oh man. Yeah. In Lou's mind, it was 2-0. It was 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't count the Rabiot goals, but
we lost 2-0 and we played with 10 men yesterday.
yeah. Oh man. We are gonna tackle everything, and there was definitely some talking points that Nick can speak to with the actual rules in sight and give clear explanations. So we're gonna do all that real quick. Just the housekeeping out of the way. For everybody that's listening on your audio outlets, head over to YouTube. That's where you get the match day lives, the watch alongs. Thank you to everybody who was in the watch along. That was actually awesome and enjoyable. We had some wicked numbers on that one, and I still get a ton of good feedback afterwards. People watching the replays and actually just listening to me for the commentary. So thank you for the support on that. Everybody else, for ways to support the channel. Obviously, we have memberships set up now, so if you choose to, that's one way. The other is the merch. All right, and we got Lucci rocking the AJC Ultras tee, and even referee Nick with the Amici di Nessuno, and that has been clearly evident that that's the case that Juve's facing this season. All right, but there's a lot of ways to support. Thank you to everybody who has already done so. All right, really means a lot, and we appreciate the continued support. Now, without further ado, let's get to the goods and what was Lazio versus Juventus. The 11 for Juve: Szczesny, Gatti, Bremer, Sandro, Quadrado, Fagioli, Locatelli, Rabiot, Kostic, Di Maria, and Vlahovic. Hard to find any issues with that lineup. Our best midfield three: Quadrado on the right. De Sciglio had the flu. So did his father, Massimiliano. And then, so run, family flu right now. And then at the back, Danilo getting a day of rest. But we end up having to get Danilo into the game. So we're going to talk about that as well. All right. But did anybody here on the panel have any issues with that lineup?
No.
Not really.
No. And there were talks about fans coming into this game that maybe we shouldn't have started Vlahovic. Did anybody feel that way?
Can I say I feel that way now?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, whatnot, but did anybody in this particular match was thinking along those lines? Because there have been fans saying we should start Milik and whatnot.
I thought he was going to get rested, not necessarily for tactical reasons that he would have got dropped. I just thought maybe with the way the schedule is towards the end, maybe he would get rested. But yeah.
Yeah. Nick, were you okay with Vlahovic getting in there?
Yeah, definitely. You're playing Lazio, second place in the league. Why wouldn't you put in your guy? Simple as that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Ramo, to my point, is one that said Milik should have started. But is that just hindsight? Or did we truly feel that way from the beginning? I think, there's definitely this talk, and I said it in the Match Day Live, about when a guy's going through something, you usually look for indicators of exactly, like, is it more mental or whatnot? And if I'm looking at the Vlahovic situation, I think it's highly mental. And for that, if you pull him out, it might go even further backwards, like in terms of getting him like on track again. But we might have reached that point, everybody, and we are definitely going to talk about Dusan. But let's go through the highlights really quick here. Lazio get things started early. Luis Alberto hammering one in the 4th minute, but luckily right at Szczesny handles it easily. 13th minute. This was pissing me off because this happened quite a bit in the first half. But like Fagioli gives up the ball, and I don't even know what he's doing because he stops playing.
Mm-hmm.
He just has his arms up, stops playing. You just literally gave it up to a Lazio player, and he's running back at our defense. Luckily, through all the dribbling and Sergej Milinkovic-Savic almost carving us as he's right about to fire, and Bremer intervenes with a huge intervention. But that was pissing me off because they just looked not focused and not sharp that early into a game, 13 minutes in. Wild to me. 28th minute, Anderson flips one over the head of our defense. Immobile actually does well to hit this one. Szczesny makes a good stop there. And then we get to the 37th minute. Zaccagni on Lazio's left flank cuts inside, ends up putting a cross back post. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic is there. You see a little bit, looking at it live, I was like, oh man, you've got to be sure. You got to be damn sure. Watching the replays, man, Sandro goes down, hits the deck. A very easy trap and goal for Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, and Juventus is 1-0 down. We're all left wondering what the hell is going on. Now, before we get to referee Nick, on replay, after I saw the replay, I was pissed off with Alexandro. I saw on social media there's a lot of people that were like, what, Juve's getting screwed and stuff. Like, yeah, Sandro needs to man up. There was barely any amount of a shove, and I thought he still could have made the play on the ball. So for me, it's not a call. Lucci, was it a call for you?
No. Too
Lou,
soft.
call for you?
It's not.
Yeah, live chat. You guys can get your feelings in here. And referee Nick, before you give us the explanation and your thoughts on this play, that statement I saw continuously on Twitter is that it doesn't matter how soft or whatnot because the arm was extended. There was a clear push. I'm going to let you do your stuff now and speak to this moment and this play.
Yeah, so when I first saw the goal and I saw Sandro go down and all the Juve players going to protest, my immediate thought was, okay, that's a low-risk foul. If there's any type of contact there, first thought as a referee is just blow the whistle immediately, get out of there quick before the ball even goes in the net. Then looking at the replays, I think you summed it up there. We see an arm extended on Alexandro, okay? And I actually like how you just brought up that point. It doesn't matter. It's a clear push. But that's the thing. I don't think that's a clear push there. We see players with their arms in the penalty area all the time, using their arms to get space. And I think in this case, the key word here is the contact was considered to be negligible. Negligible is the key word. Just because you touch a player a little bit doesn't mean it's a foul. Not all contact is bad contact. The referee on the field has to decide, was that arm extended what really put Sandro on the ground? All right?
Yeah.
Only the referee on the field can decide that. That's not VAR material. If the referee judges that contact, That's all we can. That's all we can consider.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
actually completely agree with Debelo there. There was no clear and obvious error there. It just looks like Milinkovic is absorbing the contact, and it was extremely negligible.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is that one of those moments you think a few refs call it the other way?
I could see how some would, but I'll be honest. I think that's the difference between a great referee and a referee who's okay. Sometimes you got to take that risk, not make the call. And I think Di Bello right here, this was actually his best moment in the match. He's like, no, I'm not giving it. I'm not bailing you out, Alexandro, just for a little touch, and you decided to throw yourself on the floor there.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked at it in that manner. He could still have made that play, got out of it and whatnot. And he chose to jump right out of the picture, is what it
Swan.
is. Now,
Berto, if I could just say one thing on that, that whole play, like it was very similar to the non-call on Kostick
Yeah.
mid. So it's like that wasn't a foul either. I think fans they just get like one bad call on Bremer in Europa League, and they're like, "Oh, it's called all the time." It's like, no, no, no. It's like that's like a 1 in 100 kind of thing. So,
yeah.
like, I
N-
agree. Like, it's a non-call. Like,
yeah. N- Now to VAR, because people are like, well, he's got VAR and whatnot. They can't step in on this one, right,
No,
Nick?
absolutely not. No, VAR and fans still don't understand this. People say, "Why don't you just go look at it?" No, we don't use VAR to make a call. We use VAR to fix clear and obvious errors, and that was not a clear and obvious error.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sums that up right there. So Juve falls down 1-0. We also have in this first half a challenge from Manuel Locatelli. And this one could have been red card. I thought Locatelli on the replay at the first live watch, I was like, oh, that's not terrible. After seeing the replay, I was like, man, maybe Loca's very, very lucky there to not see red. Nick, how about that challenge?
Yeah, so there are four specific things for criteria for, in this case, it would be called serious foul play. So, serious foul play is when you attempt to play the ball, but do so in an excessive or dangerous manner. Um, so, the four considerations are we have an extended leg. All right. He definitely extends his leg. We see his leg go out all the way extended. Next, we have studs. Absolutely. Hits him with studs. The next is location. Usually anywhere above the ankle, we're nearing red. And we know that was
Got a
definitely.
call come in.
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, so sorry about that. But we have a challenge above the ankle on the knee.
Yeah.
Can be considered dangerous. The key component to serious foul play is excessive force. All right. Did the opponent attempt to play the ball in an excessive manner, or was the speed of play excessive? All right. Here is is the point where he gets bailed out. He wasn't sprinting full speed and going in for a challenge. He took a heavy touch and kind of made a lunge at
Yeah.
it. And that's, I think, what really saved him. However, extended leg, you're hitting all those points solid, especially right at the knee. If he pulls the red card out, VAR is not intervening. I don't think it'd be a scandal.
So it would have been supportable. A red there. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
Great explanation. Lou, were you guys concerned for Loca on that challenge?
I mean, I've seen worse challenges than that not get red, so I wasn't overly concerned about that. I was more concerned about our play throughout the entire half. Never
Well,
mind
yeah,
that.
we'll definitely get to that.
I felt like if he would have got a red there, that kind of summed up the first half for Juventus.
Absolutely.
It's like
Yeah.
maybe the
Yeah.
referee thought like he didn't want to like disrupt the flow of like the match, giving a red there. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
And that's another key thing referees do think about, especially at the highest level. Um, if you look to, there really wasn't that much protest on Lazio's side, and there
Mm-hmm.
really weren't too many hard fouls. So
Yeah.
Di Bello's threshold for a yellow at that point, I think, was still pretty high. So to pull the red, he felt like, you know what, this is an important game. I'm only pulling this red if this is 100%.
Do we
Yeah.
think if that's in the second half or some along the 60 or 70 mark, that's a red?
I think it depends on the types of fouls that are being committed in the game. It's not necessarily the game situation. It's more how the course of the game was going in terms of fouls and misconducts.
Because it's like once you
Interesting.
give that red, like you start like a precedent, right? So
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Exactly.
you have to like start giving cards more.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. All right. So now we get to Alex Juve's point here about after the goal, Juve played the best football of the whole match until we tied. Why can't we play like that the whole game? Well, Juve presses and really gets after it after going 1-0 down. They're rewarded through a corner kick. Bremer again getting to this thing, hammering it down. Rebound bounces off Rabiot. He takes not one but two hits at this thing, gets it over the line. Okay, wins Jeremiah a kit. Lou's got to buy it. We don't even notice that. We're wild times. I lost my mind on the watch along with this goal because we finally tied, and it's like, okay, now we can wake up and play, but we go into halftime and see if we can make it happen in the second. Come out of here 1-1, but Lazio made us look absolutely awful in the first half, okay? Absolutely dreadful first half. I will say this, credit where credit is due, because based on the last times we played Lazio, we rendered them toothless, but Lazio did a good job of flooding our midfield, and when we hit one of the flanks, they overloaded it. And Juve could not figure out a solution. And we had a number of guys that, in my opinion, were pretty flat in terms of effort and work rate. And that just made an ugly half of football for Juve. We're going to go through second half highlights so that we can hit all the talking points and get everybody's view on this entire game. But I think this is unanimous, guys. Brutal first half. Unacceptable first half.
Yeah,
There's nothing more really to say, right?
it was like as bad as an AJC episode with Luca on it.
Oh, Luca here. Look at this guy.
Catching
What a
strays
pick,
always.
though, eh? Rocking the DJ pick now. Look at that guy. Oh, man. Jeez. All right, Luca. It's not a true AJC show without a couple Luca digs in there. So you know what's coming.
Luca's doing his Easter egg hunt right now. Leave him alone, guys.
Yeah, he's got to focus. All right. Now, second half. Okay. 53rd minute, and worked up the pitch very, very quickly for Lazio. Sandro can't stop the cross in, and then you see a little bit of an error there in communication. Quadrado is caught between Luis Alberto and Zaccagni because Gatti has followed his man all the way, basically taking him right next to Bremer. So because of that, little bit of an issue. Quadrado steps into Luis Alberto, which I honestly think, to be fair to Juan Quadrado, he's in an awful spot there. It's either Luis Alberto gets a shot from right there, or he's forced to make a play to find Zaccagni. And to be honest, this backheel touch was absolutely sublime. That was a nice goal from Lazio. Like,
We got violated on that goal by Alberto.
man,
It's just like
play up the flank. People are going at Sandro. You can't stop this. You can't stop the man. You're not going to stop
Sandro's
every
fault.
single cross from going in. Comes in. They made a run into the area deep, which actually did suck in one of our center backs. That was Gatti. Quadrado then gets stuck between two guys. People are yelling, well, why didn't Quadrado stay on his man Zaccagni? Well, then Luis Alberto would have just been able to rip one from right there. Blanco spot. This was just a nice goal, everybody. It's a nice goal from Lazio. If Gatti communicates that a little bit sooner, holds a spot, we probably could have got out of there. But I'm also not going to fault him because it's a bang bang play and you got to make a decision. Nice goal, man, and that touch, and even the finish was nice. He slotted home back post. Chesney was diving out that way, but it was just a nice goal. It sucked, but well worked from Lazio. Anybody have anything else to add on this goal?
I do. It's not really pertaining to Juventus, but Zaccagni is the only Italian player with 10 plus goals in Serie A this season.
Wow.
Which should tell you a lot about the national team's attack.
And Adrian Rabiot is officially our top goal scorer.
Which tells you a lot about our attack. Yeah.
Credit to the crazy horse, but my God, our striker.
Yeah. I mean,
Come
good
on.
for it, but like, whoa.
Yeah, whoa,
Yeah.
indeed. So, 56 minute. Okay, this is 3 minutes after, like a couple minutes after, a pass behind our defense. Quadrado caught sleeping. Zaccagni buries again, but clear and obvious offside. Okay, so called back, kind of bails Juve out. Man, we have to make changes, and we do. And Quadrado after that was like unrecoverable. And you're just like, okay, he's got to come out. Danilo was supposed to get rest, but you know what? You got to do it. And Danilo comes on. We make a few other changes trying to save this match. Vlahovic is another change. Not necessarily at that time, but we're making changes. 62nd minute. Sandro actually does well. Cuts inside the area. Pops the ball up. Vlahovic cannot direct this on target with the header. To be honest, none of the chances he had, I felt like really crazy about him missing, like flat out missing target. Like even this header, I was like, you know what? They're not super easy to convert. Do you guys agree, or did you think he had some he should have done better with?
I agree, but I still think he should have hit the target, especially on that one. He wasn't even contested in the air. He had enough time to at least get it on target. I'm not saying score, but you try to force the keeper to make a save there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually think the header he had in the first half, he could have gotten on a little bit better with. This one, there was one he had in the first half that I thought he could have put on target that he didn't.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same. I think the one in the first half was easier for him to get over and head towards target. This one I felt like it was a little bit, it was a weird trajectory too, because he popped it straight up and then it's coming straight down. It's kind of weird, but either way, he's struggling. The only real time I could think of a moment that he made a fault in play to feet or error is we had a nice send ball for him that would have had him running at Romagnoli clear, and he couldn't even trap the ball. He missed it completely, and it went beyond. And I'm just like, that's kind of how things are going for Vlahovic right now. But he's not able to convert this opportunity on target. Then, like I said, we get more changes. 83rd minute. Chiesa looked raring to go, I gotta say. And like he showed a couple of blasts in burst and speed and pace and going at, and I was like, man, we got to start getting him involved, because after he came on, he had a couple sequences, and then all of a sudden it's like we just weren't even going there anymore. And I'm like, you got to get this guy involved. You have to get him involved. 83rd minute, he absolutely torches his man, crosses this one from deep into a trailing run. You could see it a mile away. Fagioli doing everything right. He's on it, and he just can't put it on target. And he was choked. We were all choked. Fagioli, you could read it all over his face. He gets subbed off not too long after that for Miretti. And unfortunate there. Miretti comes on. He looks energetic, ready to go, but then he doesn't end up a progression where it should go. A ball to Di Maria on the flank as we made a cut and broke the lines in the midfield. He was absolutely roasted by Danilo and even Di Maria. Danilo was losing his mind on Miretti for not moving that ball where it should have gone. And you know what? That's a part of growing up in this game and being at that level. Every inch counts, and when you have the moment to progress that ball, you have to do that, especially when you're chasing the game. And I have no problems with what Danilo was doing and whatnot, but it kind of just shows me again that I truly believe, and it's not a knock on Moretti, but and I'm not using this one instance, but it's growing in matches, it's learning that, it's understanding and whatnot, and is Juve the place to necessarily do that? Because some fans were like, we keep putting him in these situations, these scenarios, and it's even harder for a young kid like that. And even Fagioli himself went to Serie B, went to Cremonese, had a fantastic season, and it took him how long into this season to really get integrate and rolling, right? I don't know. But this whole play with Moretti, does anybody have a problem with what Danilo did?
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
No problems with what Danilo did. Moretti, is it going to be this backwards? People see it as a backwards move, sending him out on a loan or whatnot. But in these scenarios, I think a loan might be best.
The hard thing is, like, if you look at his numbers, like, usually you send players on loan because they're not getting enough time to develop these. Like Moretti, when he's been fit, he's appeared in almost every game he could. Like, I think he's missed like one game where he, like, when he's been fit, that he hasn't come off and come in. I mean, it's growing pains, but I feel like that amount of time and that amount of minutes that he's gotten here, like, you just can't. If it was like someone like Sule, I would agree. But the amount of minutes he's gotten in the competitions he's gotten, like, yeah, like, he's not ready for them, but like, those are so vital for him. Like,
But that's all because of Pogba. If Pogba was fit, he wouldn't be playing.
but I mean, you're right. But like, that's like another timeline. Like, he's gotten those minutes, so it's like, like next year, like, we don't know who will be in that midfield, right? Like, I mean,
I think, like, if I look at this, I agree with what Lou's saying in terms of he's getting the minutes, but I guess it comes down to what we believe about the pressure of the kit and the shirt at Juve and whatnot and these situations. And Moretti's one of his strengths when you watch, like I said, we have a couple guys, and Lou mentioned Sule and whatnot. We have a couple guys that are clearly above the level of next gen and clearly stand out and are too big for next gen, but they're just not quite there for the senior side, right? As far as Moretti goes and the minutes and everything, he's still making some errors in some critical moments and the decisions aren't quite there. And I just feel like if that pressure is taken away and he's at a place where he can grow and it's not so highlighted or evident, like when he missed that opportunity clear in front of goal and allows himself to get caught from behind, not just one time in it from like 8 yards out. It's moments like that. And then they get magnified because it's at Juventus. You know what I mean? Whereas if he's at somewhere he's going to learn, it's probably not so magnified, right?
I see what you said, but like also too, like, he could come back, like, next summer and his technique could greatly improve. And it's like, like, maybe he's like his shooting, his finishing's gotten better. He's putting a little muscle on. Like, he's gotten a year older. It's hard. Like, maybe now, like, you'd be like, yeah, but like with these young players, like, they could jump at any moment. Like, it's really like one of those things, like Fagioli not getting any minutes and then getting a ton of minutes. Like, they could jump at any moment. So it's really like, where do you believe the potential is? Like, is the potential like so extraordinary that like you think that at some point, once it taps, like once it hits, like how far away is it? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, where's that potential and how far away do you think he is? It feels like Allegri thinks that obviously highly of him, but it's just, like, at the end of the season, where do they think his trajectory is? And I will say that I think Juventus has done pretty good when it comes to the next gen. However that is run, the loans, they've done really, really good with the youth players.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if they send him out on loan, like, I guess I wouldn't complain about it because I trust the club in that regard. But
yeah,
I'd rather keep him with the first team. That's my personal opinion. Even with the struggles, I think here is the best place for him.
Well, let's talk about, not to get overboard, but let's just give our shots we'll shoot from the hip here. Lucci, would you loan Moretti out next season based on so far where we're at? And obviously it could change before season's end, but right now, loan or keep?
Just based on the names I think we'll have for next year, I'm keeping him.
Keeping him? Okay.
Yeah.
Nick, keep or
Yeah,
loan?
I'm keeping him. I think he doesn't need that much more. The errors he makes, I think, are not necessarily technical errors. I think they're just youth errors. Those
Hmm.
are errors I see guys in MLS Next U19 making. Simple ball out. I think having a guy like Danilo chirping at him, a legend like Danilo, is what he needs. That's
There
just
you
how I
go.
feel.
And lose, keep, and I will be the unpopular opinion. And I'm okay with that. I'm used to being there, so it's
You've
good.
been saying this for a couple months, so like to your
Well,
credit, like you've had
yeah,
this narrative.
like
Like,
I
it's not
just
like
I
a
just think it'll really really benefit him like it did Fajol, because I think people that see loans and think, oh, it's always a negative thing. We brought up Marco Piazza yesterday, who's been on Juve's list since like 2016, okay? That's a negative situation when there's like no hope. There's nothing, like, it's dead to rights there. He's not going to be integrated. He's not going to be a part of anything or whatnot. So for me, it's essentially like, you know what? Um, as far as loans go, it fits. It's up to the player. You learn a lot about the player and you know whether he's going to get that integration or not. So it's not, if it's negative, it's because of the player not seizing the moment, right? You've got Fajoli went out, seized the moment, fought for his right to stay in, got the job done. Rovella. Rovella's been out loaned. He is definitely impressed. Also, for the Rovella Hive out there, bagged his first goal in Serie A yesterday. It was an absolute beauty.
Good
Hell of a
goal.
ball from Sensi, too. That nice goal. But Rovella's numbers, too, his stat lines in that game. And I know everybody's concerned about injuries and whatnot, but I'm telling you, like, bring this guy back. Let's put him in and see what's there.
Yep.
Last injury was an ankle knock too, so not muscular things we're dealing with necessarily. So I always give a little bit of leeway to players when it's knocks like that. Now, to finish up this game, we get a Di Maria opportunity breaking into the area. I was screaming for him to shoot this ball. Okay? And he plays it inside to Chiesa. There is a nudge from Sergei Milinkovic-Savic right there, live on the spot. I believed a PK was coming. I will say that live on the spot. It wasn't until I watched the replay that I could see that maybe, just maybe, a little bit light there, but I still think more often than not that gets called. But looking at it, I could see why not. Lucci, did you think it was a PK all day?
I mean, it's a tough one because you do notice he does come into him like from behind, and again we talked about this earlier. Regardless of how soft or hard the contact is in the box, like
Well, I
I
think what's interesting
man,
here is that 9 times out of 10, anything from coming from behind
yes,
tends
exactly,
to get called like almost
yeah,
everywhere on the
yeah.
pitch. Lou, did you think PK?
Yeah, I thought there was enough to give away a penalty. It would have been a
Yeah.
soft penalty, but I thought there
But
was enough to like give away a penalty.
but based on the first call, in the first half, the Milinkovic Savic goal, I'm not surprised he didn't call it because that was
Yeah,
fairly consistent.
Yeah.
But
Nick, do your thing.
Yeah, I think all the points you brought up are absolutely correct. I think either one can be supportable here. This is 50-50. Put 10 refs in a room, 5 say penalty, 5 say no penalty. And going back again to the Sandro goal, and we said another one on Kostic, that high contact, Di Bello was not calling all game.
mm-hmm.
So credit to him for being consistent with that. So yeah, Chiesa has the advantage there. He takes the knock, more upper body than lower body. I think that was another key point here. Tripping a player is much more obvious than having this upper body contact where you don't really know if that truly threw the player off balance in an unfair manner. I also think Milinkovic-Savic, he wasn't really trying to challenge Chiesa. He more just kind of ran into the back of him, which isn't necessarily a point in his favor, but it can be. Just because you hit a player by accident also doesn't mean it's not a foul.
True,
Yeah.
but don't you think he knows what he's doing there to throw Chiesa off from having that shot? Like, you throw off his whole momentum when you're contacting his upper body. Like, it screws up everything.
Yeah, so you can throw off. It's definitely okay to throw off that player a little bit. Every defender is trying to do that. The fact that it's from behind, we're definitely pointing to. Okay, maybe that's a penalty. If he kind of steps to the side of Chiesa or tries to establish his position from the side or
Mhm.
tries to get in front of him, then I'd say 100% no penalty there. Again, I think this is another case of Di Bello saying the contact for him was negligible. And actually, looking at the replay, I don't think the ball was as close to Chiesa as we initially thought. I don't think Chiesa necessarily has a clear cut, clean strike on it. I think he'd be stretching for it a little bit there, which is another factor. Did the attacker have the opportunity to play the ball? If I think if that ball hits Chiesa, goes right to Chiesa, hits his feet, we're looking at a different story. And all the credit to Di Bello too. He was in the perfect position to judge that contact. No other person on this earth could have made that decision. I think better than him from where he was.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, there you have it.
yeah.
5 out of 10 refs might call it, and that's where we are. 2-1. It ends. To be honest, all the outrage, like I said at the start of the show to lead things off, I wasn't feeling it. I was more pissed off with us wasting yet another complete half of football like we did in the first half. That's
Mhm.
what frustrated me more than not getting calls. And you know what? Honestly, like calls that just don't bother me. Like if we were on the opposite end of Lazio's first goal or whatnot, I wouldn't be bothered. This one, I wouldn't want this one to get called against us. So I could kind of see why. And Dell's had that same exact point. Hate having soft penalties called against us, so we're not going to complain about it. Ultimately, this team continues to have issues in the final third. But for me, my frustration was just us wasting a first half. Let's get your overviews of the game and if you guys felt the same way, what you thought about it. Is it more credit to Lazio or did Juve just completely waste everything away and do? Obviously, we know we continue to struggle offensively, but we're starting off with Lou on a quick recap. Then we're going to get to all our post-match topics. Lou, overview?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like you said, like it's the first half is just disappointing. It's almost like Juventus thought, oh, we've beaten Lazio twice this year. We have their MO. Nothing's going to change. And credit to Sarri, he's done a really good job there, and he had them ready. They wanted more than us, and they kicked the crap out of us in the first half. So yeah,
Yeah. And like I
Fair.
said, it's about game plans and it's about adapting and changing things up. And maybe the fact that Landucci was there and not Allegri played into things because Lazio didn't do what they did yesterday previously. Like I
Mhm.
said, there was nowhere to go in the middle of the park. Rabiot, I thought, out of the three midfielders, was doing his best to try and get involved kind of everywhere. But Fagioli was really struggling to get into the game. Locatelli was almost ruled out completely. Okay. Paredes came on. That's the best Paredes has ever looked for Juve, but again, you barely ever see it. So maybe that slap in the face with going with Barnechea a few times consecutively snapped him into maybe not wanting to continue to be embarrassed or whatnot. But whatever it was, he was actually making some deep passes when we were pushing, but it was too little too late to really measure it because Lazio had already let off, right? Lazio was in protection mode. So take that with a grain of salt too. But maybe because Max wasn't there and we couldn't figure that out sooner, that Lazio was absolutely flooding the midfield. And when we went to a perimeter, especially on a side, they just overloaded it and won the ball back and then moved from there. We just couldn't figure it out. Nick, your
Mhm.
overview quickly on this game. Anything to add?
No, I think overall, solid, solid refereeing here, especially from VAR. Irati is considered the best VAR in the world by FIFA. Some 50-50 calls. When you judge a referee's performance, I think you got to look at key match incidents, so goals and penalties, red cards. and those were all supportable calls.
Yeah. So no issues there. Just Juve essentially, not getting the job done. Lucci, your overview?
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Lazio. They were good, but we just didn't show up. We didn't show up at all. We showed up for 5 minutes when we scored until we scored the goal, and then again back into our shell. Again, I thought, to be honest, I thought this was probably Fagioli's worst game of the season. He just got manhandled by that midfield, and hopefully that's again another growing pain, a learning curve for him. It's tough to say who our best player was. Like that's how bad it was.
Well, let's get to it. Who would you name as man of the match? And everybody in the live chat, give us your man of the match. I'm going to be quick with it. It was Rabiot for me. It was Adrian Rabiot for me. If I had to pick one.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree on that.
Hey, you know what? Props to you, Lou.
I don't like. Everyone else was so crap yesterday. Like,
yeah.
He had the effort. He was working, hard everywhere all over the pitch. He was trying to get things going. Like I said, out of all our midfielders, he was the only one seemingly finding a way to kind of get involved there and whatnot. Scored our one goal, gave us hope. I don't know. He was our only one. Di Maria faded in and out. We'll talk about player performances too. For me, how did everybody see Di Maria in this game?
I thought he was awful, to be honest. He had
good. The first half was a nightmare.
It was shocking.
He came alive when Chiesa came on late in the second half. Other than that, you couldn't even notice him.
But there's a problem with Di Maria. We talked about this in the chat. Alberto and I did, I think, midweek. It's against some of these bigger Italian sides, especially the ones that like defend the way Lazio and Inter and Roma do. Like they just disrupt the midfield so much that Di Maria comes so far back. And when he drops deep into the midfield, it's like I was watching like Dybala again. Like Dybala used to have that issue too. You have to drop so deep that like he becomes irrelevant, and it's neither of their game. And I felt like that first half, like that was where he was. Like he was deep, and like when Di Maria's out of his groove, he turns crap.
Yeah.
Fast. Like when
I don't know.
What that does too, when he's got to move so deep, it actually leaves Vlahovic with nobody next to him. Nobody to play off, nobody to play, like, he's alone. He's alone. And not just Vlahovic, anybody. Like, they're alone. Di Maria is also not typically this role. He is a winger. He's a winger. Oh, no. He can play this role because he's a world-class player. He can do it. But this is a problem with his game. And it looked like he was trying too much at certain times. He was trying to beat every man instead of moving the ball. But in the first half, I would say that was really highlighted. In the second half, it was better. Because in the first half, he had an option to just lay one in front of Kostic right beyond the entire Lazio line. And he waited and waited and waited, then tried a 1-2, almost like Vinicius did there the other day. 1-2 pass through. And it just gets stopped, and then they're just running right back. Because I'm like, man, you had a simple pass to make. And I would have expected that from anybody, especially Di Maria. So he had an awful, awful first half. He grew into the second half, but it was came in. By the time he hit danger levels, it was
I felt like
too little, too late.
Especially after we scored the goal, like it opened up, the match opened up a little bit more. And that's where he's like really, really good, is when the match is like open like that. And he's able to, break the lines, go on the counterattack, take people on 1v1. That's what he's really good. Like, and then Chiesa came in and really opened that thing.
Yeah, because he got more space when Chiesa came in, right? Like he was able to carry the ball a bit more.
Chiesa didn't care if there was 3 guys on him, 4 guys on him. Like he was in go mode, and he was taking them on, and he was doing a hell of a lot of work on that flank. Now this brings up, everybody was rip-roaring about going into a 4-3-3. And Nick, I got to apologize. Man of the match, was yours Rabiot as well?
It has to be.
Yeah.
No other choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
We got on a tangent.
We'll get into the next up, which is everybody that was rip-roaring about playing a 4-3-3 and having to go with it now because we see that offensively we continue to struggle and we just can't get it done. I feel a certain way about this, but we're going to kick this one off with Lucci on a 4-3-3. Do we have to switch?
Man, I want to say yes. I just don't trust our back line to be able to handle it, especially our fullbacks. Quadrado was awful yesterday. Worst I've seen him probably all year. I don't trust Sandro on the left. Like, who are you going to play there? You're going to play Kostic as a left back? Maybe. The only good thing is that I think it would help get Vlahovic more involved because, again, he's just not looking good right now. I don't know if it's a confidence thing or
we're gonna bring up Vlahovic. The back line is probably where it rests for me on a 4-3-3. But
exactly.
If Gatti can keep playing solidly, how do we feel about Danilo on the left, even though it's not his preferred, but Bremer, Gatti, and then Quad on the right?
See, I just don't trust Quadrado at right back anymore.
Me
I
either.
think in the wing back, he's at least like a little bit useful because he's good for like an odd goal. But like,
so
the right back,
do you play Danilo on the right, Kostic as your attacking left back? Maybe.
I'm not big on Kostic on a left back just because even as a wing back, when he's had to make that back line there, I see way too much dropped coverage.
If we went a 4-3-3, I guess you'd have to play. You'd have to play Sandro at left back. You just would. Which again, so like I'm with you guys. Like I'm a back. I think the back three is useful. I think it helps Juventus a lot. I think Gatti can play so well in the back three is because it lets him be a little bit more free.
And I don't hate I don't love the back three, I should say, but it's right now it's what we have to deal with it.
So Leo saying Alexandro and Quadrado proved they're not up to it anymore. Anthony Trimboli saying that the back line is the issue, but likes Gatti and Bremer in the middle and go with Sandro Daniel on the left. I would absolutely not go Sandro as the left back.
Yeah.
It just that's where the problem lies for me in feeling confident with a 4-3-3. Nick, what do you think about the 4-3-3? Would you make that change?
So, are we trying to solve a defensive issue or attacking issue or just everything?
More the attacking issue and getting these guys able to actually score more goals.
Yeah, so from attacking, I could see how that works. But I'm actually not too worried from a defensive point of view because knowing Allegri, I think this is what he's going to do in a 4-3-3. Whoever is on the left wing, all right, let's say it's Chiesa, when we're holding in a defensive formation, it's going to become a 4-4-2, I think, or even a 4-5-1. I think those wings are going to be reinforced by the winger playing on the left and then whoever we have in the right midfield. So I'm not worried defensively. And an attacking point of view, I'm not really sure. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head how that will fix any issues. I think we're going to have the same thing. We're dropping back in a 4-4-2. Now what? Our guys isolated. How are we going to solve that issue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's funny because in theory, how we're set up now should have more support for the striker. But it doesn't play out that way. Part of it is the absolute free roam play that some guys that play that second forward role take, like Di Maria. When Milik is up there, he plays and it actually helps the team overall because he's strong in the whole, like he's strong in all areas and he actually moves a lot. He doesn't stay planted centrally and up top. He will drift out. He will get involved. He find ways. That's what veterans do. They know how to get involved, get in the game. We're at a crossroads right now, I believe, with Dusan Vlahovic. Because if you keep going the way you're going now, this is clearly not working. And it's taking a toll. The guy has deactivated from Instagram completely. I don't know if it's because of hateful remarks from fans. I sure hope not, because that's absolutely unnecessary. There's no reason anybody needs to attack these people on social media. I mean, ultimately, like, nobody walks into your job and starts verbally abusing you or whatnot for the job you do. I hope not, anyways. Otherwise, you guys need to reconsider your career choices or whatnot. But it's overboard. It's overboard for fans to take to that level. Now, I don't know if that's 100% what happened, and I heard that he had shut down comments on any of his stuff for a long time, but I don't know if that's true either. Regardless, it's a sign that there's obviously it's taken its toll on Duchamp. With Chiesa and Di Maria out there, you saw Lazio had to kind of stay true and stay honest to the threats everywhere. Yep. But we ended up seeing Milik in there as well. All right. And I can't help but feel all of a sudden we had more of a push. We had more of a threat. We were stretching them out. Is that going to help Dusan Vlahovic? The flip side to this argument is that we saw it and the trident wasn't much better, to be honest. Like, it wasn't exactly going crazy. Was that because we didn't give it enough time? Was it because there's still not enough guidance from the coach and figuring things out? Like, what is the problem with this team offensively, and what do we need to do to get Vlahovic going, or will we simply not get Vlahovic going?
To start, I think the Vlahovic thing, I put this in the chat yesterday too, like in our team chat, but there's a really great quote from Alan Shearer. He was doing an interview and they asked him like, how do strikers, break funks? And he was like, to break a funk, like you have to do the little things. And I think in like another interview right after that, people in Zaghi said the same thing. Like you have to work on work on your touch, your hold up play, things like that. And I think that Vlahovic, like while he is isolated a lot and sometimes we don't play to his strengths, it's like the little things that he doesn't do very well in certain matches. His hold-up play can be really suspect. He doesn't really create much. Vice versa, we see someone like I saw Erling Haaland in an interview. I think after he scored his 5 goals, they asked him like, hey, how can you get any better than this? And he was like, I could get a lot better. My hold-up play is not good. Like, my passing's not good. Like, when you're a young striker, like, you need to understand that a little bit more. Milik, as you mentioned, Berto, like, does that really well. I think to his credit, no one really wants to say it, I think Keane's improved a lot in that aspect. His whole play's gotten better. His runs have gotten a little bit better. His passing's gotten a little bit better. Like,
work rate.
Work rate. So I think that for Vlahovic, it's about like getting back to basics. And a lot of the post-match you read from Allegri when he's asked about Vlahovic is that it's like, get to the basics, right? Do the little things, right? Because if you're not scoring goals, if you're like affecting the team in a positive way, that would help you. As far as your question about the attack, I would like to see if Chiesa could play 60, 70 minutes. I don't know where he's at, but I would like to see the formation we saw in the first leg against Nantes again. Unfortunately, that probably means you have to drop Fagioli, which would be a shame. But if you could get, Košić, Chiesa, Vlahovic, Di Maria.
And that is like, not to cut you off, Luke, but that is kind of what Anthony was saying about the 3-4-2-1, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. Like, if you could get the 3 of them on the field, I thought Vlahovic in that span was looking a little bit like himself. Chiesa is more of a second striker to him. Di Maria could come deep, play kind of that role that Pogba was supposed to play this year. He drifts a little bit wide. There's a little bit more freedom. And you have 2 intelligent players who don't really need that, like, hey, this is what you need to do with the ball. Like, when you get it here, here's your positioning, that like strict tactical awareness. The problem is, it's just like, where is Chiesa? Like, can he do that? Can he do that for one game? I mean, we just don't know. Yeah. So
it's interesting. 3-4-2-1. I'm not against it. I think my only knock when we saw it was that losing that third midfielder for stability, we opened ourselves up to counters a lot. So there's concerns, but then I think about this too. There's concerns in every setup that we go with. Yeah. But we're at a point now where, and this is where the question really comes in, and this is going to hit Lucci and Nick on this one. Can we afford to go with something else to take that risk when everything is so important now? Especially the fact that the next game is Sporting. Do you bail out on what you've been doing to this point based on one loss against Lazio, where, to be fair, I believe a lot of our guys were flat? Mm-hmm. So is it worth it? Is it worth it right now to make that switch going into a game against Sporting?
Nick, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think, it's a matter of high risk, high reward, but I think it's very simple here. our coach is Max Allegri. He's not a risk taker. He's going to put his head down and keep working.
There you go. So he does not expect changes. Lucci, would you make the change? Is it too risky?
I was all for this, this change months ago. Now I don't see it happening so late in the season. So many games back to back, important games as well. Listen, I'm with Lou and Vlahovic, struggling to do the little things, and like the thing that really gets me upset with him is that when he doesn't receive a ball or when a ball's not perfectly put into him, he's giving Kostic or whoever else, he's giving them shit. Where like he's covered by four guys. You got to move, man. That's part of your striker role. You got to get open. You got to find spots, areas where you can find little gaps. I just don't see him doing that. And whereas, we saw yesterday, even though Milik came in, he didn't do much either, but he was moving. He was getting into little pockets, little 1-2s with Di Maria, trying to do those little things. I need to see that from Vlahovic if he's going to continue to start, which, listen, I'm not sure that's the best route for Thursday.
Yeah.
Berta, to your question for Thursday, Sporting, it's a really quick team. They hit the counter really fast.
Yeah.
So if they're going to try it, like Sporting might not be the game to do so.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, Sporting's going to be very, very tough right now. I would have loved to go in it like feeling much better about our offense. And this is the thing. We've been saying this for a while now. Like our offense, it's got to get going. Has to get going. Are we at a point right now where it's hurting us to start Dusan Vlahovic?
I kind of want to say yes.
Nick, are we at a point where it's hurting us starting him?
I think yes, only because of Allegri tactics. He can't adapt to the tactics. But I think ultimately it's not entirely him.
Yeah, I don't think it's entirely him either, but
really him because like the Inter game, I thought, like while there were chances that he wasted, he was isolated for a lot of that game.
Yeah.
I think even yesterday there was the one mistake Rabiot made yesterday. He overhit a ball to Vlahovic. Vlahovic made a run. He was clear in. He overhit a ball to him. And that right there is like, when you look at Vlahovic, you feel bad for him a little bit because you're like, if it's a creative player, it's like Di Maria, it's a Pogba, like that ball is perfect, right? He's probably going to score a goal. Like,
let's like, and this is one of the things too. So I feel like we're in this crossroads for Juve, and it's very, very difficult because I don't think Vlahovic is going to snap out of this thing the way we're going unless we drastically change how we use the personnel on the pitch. And this goes into yesterday's game perfectly too, because we talked about the good things Lazio were doing. But what did we do to change that up? Very rarely were we switching the field properly and just to get over there to take advantage of them overloading a flank. If they're going to overload a flank like that, you play it up to your flank, Quadrado, whoever, Kostic on the opposite side. You play it back, but then you switch field quickly after they've shifted for that overload. We did that a few times. When we did, we actually gained that field quite nicely. And when Vlahovic was moving out to the corners a couple times, we would try to play it over the top, get to him just to try and gain that space. Those were the right ideas. But it's like Juve does this a bit and then just kind of stops. They just kind of stop. They'll start doing something that's working. It's like, okay, yeah, that's how you're going to gain that space. And then from there, we can move, we can build forward. But they don't keep doing that. We like continue to try and go into the areas that Lazio just had shut right down. It was frustrating. It was very, very frustrating. I think there's still a lot for us to figure out from a team aspect and game plan aspect. Yesterday, I don't think Juve adapted right at all to take advantage of, because there's going to be you can't just, I see this team as a team that this is what we do and doesn't break away from it. Do you guys see them in the same?
Yep. I think that's how they're drilled to operate under Max.
It's very one-dimensional for me.
Yeah.
But I always feel like once like Max's kind of thing, like even thinking back to his first stint, like once he gets like a successful way of playing, like that's just like he goes with like what works. It's like, remember in his last season when he like Dybala got hurt for X amount of games, right? And they went with Bernardeschi in the 4-3-3, and like everyone was like, hey, how do you find like balance with like your best players? And it's like, if it's working for him, he just keeps going, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
season, he'll restart, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like once it's working, like he just sticks with it. And there's good things, there's bad things. Like there are some results. I mean, we've climbed up the table even to get close to the top 4 after the penalty is ridiculous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also this thing where it's like, hey, we could do so much more. It's weird. It's a hard thing to like swallow, because it's like, hey, like this team's done really well, but like what more that they could do more? Like the Inter game, like they pressed for the first 20 minutes. Inter couldn't get their ball at their half, and they just stopped. Like, why? But I think it's like you said, like they're drilled to just kind of like go back into that pragmatic, like protect, see out the half, and then start again.
Yeah. And Ramo says, why don't we talk about how Serbian national team uses Dusan Vlahovic? Well, I believe the Serbian national team doesn't stray too far from how Juve lines up. I believe they usually play in a 3-4-2-1. Vlahovic doesn't always play as that one because of Mitrovic, though, which is very interesting, because he does kind of play as one of the twos that are kind of behind sometimes, not always. And sometimes he will be the number, play as that top striker there. But I don't know. That you also look at the last team. Who's the last team he scored against? Montenegro. So it's not exactly the most difficult, challenging opponent internationally.
Mm-hmm.
People are acting like Serbia is like reinventing the wheel tactically over there. Like,
yeah, like there's nothing crazy about what they're doing. And people that want to go back to Fiorentina as well, teams play a lot different. If you go back to Dusan Vlahovic highlights, he had a lot of fast breaks with Fiorentina. He scored a lot of penalties too, because they were getting PKs and whatnot. Like it's all different. But one way or another, whether he's doing it with Serbia, whether he's doing it with Fiorentina or whatnot, when he comes here, it's still not all just simply on Juve and Max Allegri. It's a Juventus problem big time, because we spent a lot of money on him. But Vlahovic, you've got to find a way. And like I said, Keane and Milik don't exactly light the lamp by any means. But there's other intangibles. There's other little things, like Lou brought up, that they are doing. Can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also at one point, this might get me some flack. Lucci, you're gonna hate this, but I think last year when Vlahovic was scoring goals, right? Morata, Dybala, like those, like they could play that center forward, that number 10 kind of like second striker. Steve Maria, like so deep. I feel like that Vlahovic misses that Dybala like partner. Like one of the things with him leaving is that partner stays close to him, like Mitrovic for Serbia, and I think that helps. So it's like I feel like Juventus, like when they don't have that anymore, and Vlahovic is isolated too much. Is what I'm getting at.
To argue the opposite of that, Lou, like we've seen Vlahovic start or play with Milik and I think even Keane once or twice. So how come, like, we don't notice much of it? Actually, he looks even worse when he's playing with Milik or Keane.
I'm gonna take a quick sec to let everybody know now's the time. Get those Storm the Barn questions in, okay? And you guys keep rolling here, Lou.
I don't think Milik could do that role. Like I think
you're comparing Morata to Milik. It's kind of similar.
Morata can do that role. Morata could play as a winger if need be, right? Like Mario Mandzukic could do that role, but I don't think Milik can. Also, to be fair, Vlahovic was scoring goals when he was partnered with Milik at the start of the year. And then he scores goals when Di Maria plays closer to him, usually. A lot of the games, like if you look at the games he struggles the most in, he's isolated a lot. That doesn't excuse the hold up play. That doesn't excuse like the errant passes, the bad touches. But in terms of just like chances, things like that, like he gets isolated a lot. And against good teams, it's really easy to take him out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's frustrating because like people are saying it's all Allegri's fault. Dusan's not playing well, and no, I know, but I'm saying like we're standing up for Dusan, or certain fans are, but then when it comes to Milik or Keane having a bad game, it's just terrible. They suck. We should never play
Yeah.
them. They should be sold.
No,
Like, we got to have some kind of similarities here. You can't just blame the coach for everyone's failures, and you can't just blame the players for their failures. So
totally. I agree. It's
you
not.
know,
It's not. It's not all Max. It's not. It's not all Vlahovic either. I think that I don't think a really good player just totally falls away. I think he's
right?
gotten exposed a little bit. I think I think that's evident that there's clearly weaknesses in his game. But I just
But
think that
sorry,
uh,
just to so
good.
far into this season, don't Dusan knows what's needed in this setup, in this lineup, and what Max is looking for. Would you not try to work on those things and improve so you
I
can help the team, whether that's scoring or not? Like, just try to help the team,
I do agree. I
and
feel like you see it a
that's
little
what
bit.
bothers me. Listen, I
Yeah.
want Dusan. People think I hate Dusan. That's not the case. We spent a lot of money on him. I want
Oh,
him doing well. It's just we need to see more. That's what it comes down to for
I
me.
agree. I thought his performance at the San Siro against Inter was really, really good. Obviously didn't score a goal. His touches were better, but
Mhm.
the work he did for the team was very good. And that's where I was like, hey, I'd like to see more of that. Right. But I think if you take the Nance game at home, which I think he scored when Chiesa was playing next to him, I thought he had a really good game in that
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Right. Chiesa's a little bit more direct. He could actually kind of play that second striker role. That's another
Yeah.
thing, you know. It's
I
it's. I
I
mean, the other
feel
thing is
like again, we're
so
gonna be in this scenario where, and if we think about this, this is not unfamiliar territory for Juventus. I feel like we constantly get ourselves in these scenarios where we're sacrificing something.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense for us to be in this spot right now when you've had managerial changes as much as we have in these past few years, because you haven't locked into anything.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't locked into anything, and you're picking up players, you're doing things, and there's been so much change of face that, and now when you talk about lack of contingency planning and stuff too, we're caught between, what do we go with? Do we go with this? Are we better off in this scenario? And there's going to be question marks of these roles. Even Di Maria, like I said earlier on the show, second forward. Well, he plays it. He interprets that role, free reign. And another guy like Milik, when he plays up there, doesn't. So what is better for Juventus? What is better for Vlahovic? I don't think it's the same.
Right.
And I think what's better for Juventus ends up being who's in form. What's better for Vlahovic, I think, is somebody that plays closer to him, that can actually help him and not leave either one of our guys stranded. So now all of a sudden the argument completely changes, because people will see it as, how on earth can you leave Di Maria out of a big game or whatever? Okay, but don't expect a lot out of Vlahovic because it hasn't been clicking and it's not working. So maybe if you say, I want Di Maria out there, maybe Milik's the guy to be up there because he can do more when isolated.
Fair point.
Still struggles, but I think we're caught in this. We're trying to make everybody happy. It's not going to happen.
yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I think to your point, Max, if it's working one way, he's not gonna move off of it. And
Right.
maybe you could say he probably shouldn't move off of it if it's working.
Yeah. I want to
So-
start this next one with Nick here. So Nick, this is from Carlo. Okay, Garganese, who they're friends of the show. Okay, these guys with the Italian Football Podcast, they do a great job, and Carlo is no stranger to firing things up on Twitter and whatnot with posts and comments and stuff. So this is essentially him yesterday after the match, and he basically says, Juventus are on course to hit 77 points this season. This is with their 15 points back. That is still less than what Pirlo got in his only season. Don't let anyone tell you Allegri has improved Juve. He hasn't. And the last 3 games, Juve have returned to their worst under Allegri. We're all in now on Europa League. Nick, let's get your reaction first to this before we go around the horn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with it. At least most of it. I think Allegri has at least brought some consistency in, especially in the tactics. Whether we agree with them or not, we think they're working or not. He's at least consistent and has this clear philosophy. Whereas with Sarri and Pirlo, we didn't have that. We had all these constant changes and we didn't know what was going on. Look, hindsight's 2020. A lot of us probably have opinions on whether Pirlo should have been fired or not. Should we have brought back Allegri? We can talk about that all day. Um, Ultimately, I agree that Allegri is not really getting the job done. Pirlo, I think, did the best he could possibly do, and it was unfair to switch things up on the team, not even just for Pirlo's sake, to make another managerial change, as you said before, Alberto. But yeah, I think we're fortunate this year. I think the key perception here is that with Pirlo, we barely made top four based on what other teams were doing. Whereas if we get the minus 15 back, we're still in second place. So the perception is we are doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But so for context to Carlos' tweet, because there's a lot that's there. Like Nick, really good point. Like, we barely scraped the top four. Like fourth place to second place this year, you would say is an improvement, even though they got crushed by 15 points to Napoli, who's just Napoli's so much better than everyone else. The rest of that top four is crap, you know. But like that's the other thing is like, is Juventus in second place because like they're just that much better than everyone, or is it like second place because the other teams are also like kind of
Yeah.
let's be honest, they stink. Like Inter
Yep.
hasn't gotten a result in the league in like 7 games in a row.
Both men teams dropping points the other day against teams fighting for relegation. So I can't really say it's us.
Lazio and Roma have had really solid seasons, but like, would they be where they're at if it wasn't for kind of all the chaos at the bigger clubs? I mean, there's a lot there. I do think I saw Albanese had a tweet. We tweeted it from the main this week. It was like there was a lot of talk about how much Sarri's improved Lazio, and he was kind of retorting and said, "Well, the things that Max is going for him." I think the players he listed, it was like Gatti, Sandro, although after this match, I don't know if Sandro counts there. Fagioli was one. It was like
we talked about it pre-match. Yeah, there was yeah.
So it's like, so do you take that? Okay, like there's some grain of salt. Like Max also like it's hard because I don't actually know like what the club's identity will be going forward. We don't even know. Like Max effectively is our president. Like the guys in charge are interns. Like they really are.
I feel like honestly, we've improved in some areas and we've also taken a hit in some areas. Yeah. Like it's offensively, we've never been close in the 2 years of Max that we were with Pirlo.
Yeah.
Like offensively, under Pirlo, I felt like we could get a goal at any moment. And granted, great point from Enemesh. Yeah, we had Cristiano. Okay. So yeah.
Okay.
But he also didn't have as strong a midfield as we have right now, because that's probably been our best midfield over these past years of transitioning. Like, whether we like to admit it or not, Rabiot, Locatelli, Fagioli is the best three that we've seen in terms of how they play together and as a unit. So I can't help but think how things would be in that scenario. But again, Pirlo's team also defensively struggled mightily, heavily. Because we conceded at awful moments. We had lapses all over the place. And mentally, you can make the big argument that mentally, we have been the strongest this season after the Retiro and after everything. Now, people will still, because again, narratives here, everybody, and what people feel and what they believe. Was it Max that brought the team together? Was it the 15 points penalty?
Could be both.
Was it Max that helped Fagioli along, or was it the injuries that had him coming in and then all of a sudden he couldn't deny him? Hey.
But I would like to say this about the 15-point penalty. Like, if you remember, like when we got that penalty, right? Like the first person to speak on it was Max. Max was the only representation from like upper hierarchy. Like the whole time, like you listen to his interviews, like I report the majority of his interviews from our. He's up there talking about how we're in second, we earned second place, but here's the reality. It's one game at a time. Like the mentality thing, like he deserves credit for that. Like
Yeah.
I hate it when fans just like, listen, I'm not happy with some of the tactics either. I don't think we get the best out of certain players, but like you can't deny that like the mentality he helped create, right? That team is devoid of leadership. Those players are like they looked lost in the first half of the season.
Yeah. I'm not sold on moving forward with Max, but I'm also not going to take away credit for what we've done. We're at a point, and weaker Serie A, everything like this and whatnot. Nonetheless, we're at a point with almost the 15 points, not even recoup, where we can get into the top 4. Like, it's got to be commended. And the injuries, like, there's been a lot going on. Okay, got to give him a bit of credit here, and I will give him credit.
They say like they're like, oh, like he won't play the young players too, but then he's like quoted saying like, hey, next year we want to debut 9 of them.
Yeah.
So it's like
I don't know. It's anybody. Like I said, right now, I feel also too sometimes we get away from what happens on the pitch and start to go overboard. And sometimes it's like we were doing fine, and even when you look at some of these losses, they suck, and there's frustrations amongst those losses, but it's not as drastic, I feel. So it's like nobody had a problem for a long while here, 3-5-2. You lose a game, got to get out of this 3-5-2. It's this 3-5-2. Well, is it? Or is it that we just didn't adapt to what Lazio was doing? And it took us way too long to get engaged in this game. Is it the fact that we don't have Chiesa available for more than half an hour right now at this point? Like, there's a lot of what ifs. But again, the losses hurt and they sting, and we always look for answers immediately. We are going to wrap up with this Storm the Barn. I've got an Easter egg hunt to get to with the ladies, okay? So we got to shut this thing down. If Vlahovic continues to play like this for the rest of the season, would you sell him? Who's your dream replacement? Nick, if he continues like this, do you sell him?
No.
All faith from Nick. So we don't even need your dream replacement. You stick with him, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And also from practicality point of view, unless you get some crazy 150 million offer in the position the club's in, who do you get? Who are we going to get? It's not practical, in my opinion.
Good point.
All right. No practicality. Lucci, if he continues like this, you sell him?
Is Max the coach next season? I think a lot of factors play into this.
Let's say yes, because I think it's looking he will.
I think if Max stays, Dusan has to leave, not only for the team to be better, but also for Dusan to hit his potential. His replacement, I wouldn't be surprised if Juve tried to go after Scamacca. I feel like that's more of a hold up Max, back to goal type of player.
Okay. Lou, would you sell him if he continues like this?
How do I follow that up?
Scamacca. Too many tattoos for you, don't forget that.
Yeah.
I think if a good enough author comes in, you have to take it. But a lot of that's good.
And let's remember, we're saying if it continues like this for the remainder of the season, still quite a few games remaining and everything. So if it continues like that, for me, if a strong offer came in and Max is still our coach, I think, you got to take it, to be honest, because what are we doing? Are we running the risk of losing even more value?
Yep.
Julian Alvarez is the dream replacement, by the way.
Well,
yes, Alvarez.
I didn't know we were being unrealistic here. Jeez.
Everybody, I hope you guys all enjoy great Easter for all that applies to, and everybody. Lucci, amazing. Arbitro Nick, so happy to have you with us today, giving the great explanation straight out of the rule book. Lou does an amazing job. For anybody that's not following us on Twitter, get over there. This guy, I don't even understand how he tracks the news so fast. Whenever I've had to fill in, I'm like, how the hell does he do this? It's unbelievable, okay? Great stuff. Thank you, brother, for all the hard work you put in. We got to get you on the shows much more. Everybody else, hey, let's forget about this. The therapy session's over. We start to focus immediately on sporting, and that is going to be a very, very tough one. Are we going to change formations? Are we going to go away from Vlahovic up top? Hey, Who knows? But we're going to track everything starting tomorrow when I bring you the daily news updates. All right, everybody take care. As always, drop a like, please. Subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow for the daily update video. As always, fino alla fine. Forza Juve. Ciao tutti. Take care.
Yeah.